All right, so I have about 15 minutes to try to fit the emotional impact of a mission trip to Ghana into this evening, and I'm going to struggle immensely with that because it was a really, truly emotional experience. This clicker is, in fact, working. Yes, it is working, good. So getting from Florida to Ghana is about a 30-hour travel experience. And that involves the ride to the airport, the flight, the layovers, the night in Accra, and then we have an hour flight to Tamale the next morning, and from there we pack into 3 vans to get to Zwarungu. But the good thing about 30 hours of travel time is that it gives you a little bit of time to get from your head into your heart. And since I wear 2 hats, clearing my calendar for 10 days is not an easy task. So I was entirely stuck in my head before taking this journey. And getting into the field and connecting with the folks in the field requires getting into your heart. So that was really good time to have for me. This is the crew we went with. It was 13 individuals from 4 different states, 4 generations from Gen Z through boomers. And we had anyone from chaplains to pastors, their wives, college students, and a lady by the name of Monique who traveled for the first time ever in her entire life on an airplane, and she decided to make that a trip of service to Ghana. So talk about ripping off the Band-Aid. Now, it is not always to be taken for granted that when 13 people from all these different generations and different walks of life, we have veterans, we had airplane mechanics, clergy, and so on and so forth, that they would get along under the strain of travel, taking medications you're not accustomed to taking, malaria medication and so on and so forth, eating food at different times, being jet lagged. Normally you would expect that somebody at one point or another would be tense, but this was the fruits of the Spirit on display the entire 10 days. I have never experienced anything like it. It was absolutely amazing. Every single person was there for a reason, and it was not for themselves. This is the lodge we stayed at and our Can-Do motorcade. This is a mode of transportation in Zwarungu to get from point A to point B. They ran the taxis out of town a long time ago. And first order of business or ministry for us was to do outreach to local villages. And we went to the village of Pitanga, Doba, and Kologo, the last 2 of which are as far north in Ghana as you can go before you get to Burkina Faso, which is not very friendly territory for Christians. There's a lot of terrorist activity there. So just the fact that we were there worshiping with the people of Doba underneath that tree right there. They always say the church is not the building. Quite literally, in this case, it is not the building, it is under a tree. Then we did some outreach in the village of Pitanga, actually going from home to home, praying with people in their homes and sharing the gospel. And that was something that several people were just slightly out of their comfort zone with because they have never done something like that in their entire lives. And it's one of the coolest moments of the entire mission trip, and I did not have my camera ready to capture it because I was not expecting it. But the very person that was the most stretched by doing this came back absolutely on fire. Just smile, just beaming, and just Matthew was just an absolute blessing for this journey for us to have. So this is the daily campus ride. So every morning we gather in the lodge, we'd have breakfast, we'd pack into 5 Can-Dos. The trick when you go into the dusty roads of Ghana is you get into the first Can-Do because you don't have to breathe the dust of the 4 Can-Dos preceding you. This is us as we come up to the campus of Word International School. This is the music the Can-Do driver was playing in the Can-Do. So as you can see, boundary walls, razor wire, some of it electrified. And in this case, I must say I've been to 3 different fields with ASON International. I've been to South Asia, I've been to the Dominican Republic, and now Ghana. And each field has their own vibe, so to speak. In the DR, it's inner city. There's a lot of violence. In South Asia, There is a heavy persecution against Christians, so you cannot always feel comfortable being there. But in Ghana, I felt absolutely safe. I felt warm, welcoming. Everywhere was just amazing. I could see myself going there many more times in the future. So this is the first impression of the school as you see it from the distance. And you can see what Ghana looks like for the most part. There's 2 seasons. In the dry seasons, everything is dusty, yellow, and gray. Most people cannot afford cinder block homes. They're usually mud homes, and they cannot afford stucco or paint. So when you see something that is painted, that usually stands out. So take a look in the distance. That is Word International School, and that is the first impression that you get as you drive up to it. And they say that there is no such thing as a coincidence and that God works through synchronicities. And only an almighty, all-knowing, and powerful God could have painted that building in Florida Gator colors just before I got
Amen.
there. This is our mother church, so where there is irrigation, there can be beautiful growth, beautiful vegetation. We had a women's and leadership conference that lasted 3 days, and here you see about 75 to 150 women, depending on the day of the week, that were sitting in the heat at 104 degrees for 6 hours, listening to our ladies teaching them about 1st and 2nd Peter. And this is the leadership conference that was over in a mother church just a few feet over. The key takeaway for me for that experience was the questions that they asked in the field. And they are not the kind of questions that young believers would ask. They're the questions somebody would ask after they have been mature in their faith for some time, because they were baking my noodle. So anyway, it was obvious in the field that they were very well primed for the knowledge. They've been deep in the Word for a while, and it's because we've been going there for close to 2 decades on a regular basis with these conferences, and our national Peter Awane is an amazing teacher. Most powerful moment of the women's conference, they did a really nice job over there acting out Bible stories and skits. And Matthew, the same gentleman I was talking about earlier, selected a woman from the crowd at random and had her sit down in a chair in the middle of the field and washed her feet. And what we found out 6 hours later is that that lady had had an ailment with her feet for many years and was healed by that simple act of kindness.
Hallelujah.
So I'm the director of development. My job is to capture as much footage as I can and bring it back home so we can raise support and tell our story. Sometimes it gets me stuck behind a lens a lot, which is not the best way to bond with humans. But after the 2nd day of the conference, I said, I think I have just about everything I need. Let me put the camera down and actually start playing with the kids, playing soccer with the kids. I lasted about 15 minutes in the Ghanaian heat before the kid on the top left, whose name is Prince, told me, "You might want to rest and drink some water." Very mature. But what I noticed is that the kids there are very easy to smile. It's one of the poorest regions on earth, and they're easy to smile. Whenever I got up to go from point A to point B, Prince would offer to carry my backpack. And if it wasn't him, it was somebody else. One kid in each hand, walking 50 feet, sitting back down. You're surrounded everywhere you go. This is Joff right there. He's the American Airlines airplane mechanic. He's surrounded by kids, and it is just beyond comprehension how emotional that is. You have to go to really experience it. I'm choking up just talking about it right now. So the biggest moment of our trip was the grand opening of our senior high school. And let me show you a short clip of what that felt like. We had the chief of the Fra tribe, the local tribe, and the Ministry of Education of Bolga East with us to celebrate that event. Here's Ellen cutting the ribbon with the chief. Before we went home, we decided to buy as many Bolga baskets as we could put into duffel bags and bring them back home to sell to our respective church congregations. You see Bolga baskets right here from the same weavers group. We made sure that nobody went empty-handed. Everybody got to sell a basket because the biggest thing is, when you go there, you experience poverty from a inside-out perspective. When you see it on television, it's produced. In the United States, we have poverty in the United States, but it's usually also associated with violence, which means that we don't typically go to experience that either. But when you are on the ground in Ghana, you see that it is something that is beyond comprehension, especially because regardless of the fact that they can feed their families on $50 a month, they are smiling. And when they sell a basket like this and they know that their needs have been met for a month, they worship like their life depended on it. And usually the way that happens is there's a big circle. Everybody claps and sings and dances, and then somebody comes up and grabs you and pulls you in the middle. And then this is what this looks like. And we were all being good sports. Even the men participated. It was completely worth making a fool out of myself to see the smile on her face. So we always pray, give us this day our daily bread, but there they really mean it. We plan it months, years, even decades in advance when we plan for retirement once we hit our 20s and 30s. So.